Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we distill stacks of information into those crucial nuggets of knowledge you need to be truly well informed. Today, we're plunging into a topic that feels like it's not just transforming entire industries, but also pushing us to rethink what it even means to be creative. We're talking about how artificial intelligence is reshaping the worlds of visual art, music, and writing. I mean, these are fields we once considered exclusively human domains, right? Yet AI is making rapid, sometimes frankly astonishing advancements. It's a profound shift, bubbling with both the excitement of new possibilities and, let's be honest, a very real buzz of anxiety about disruption. So, our mission today is to unpack the current capabilities of AI across these creative realms. We're going to dive into some truly groundbreaking and at times pretty controversial real world examples. But more importantly, we're going to dissect the complex societal and legal implications that come with machines. Painting masterpieces, composing symphonies, and writing novels. It's not just about the tech itself, is it? It's about what it all means for us, for human ingenuity.
It's exactly. This isn't just a technical deep dive into algorithms and models, though we'll touch on that. Think of it as a journey to understand not only what AI can do creatively, but what its capabilities truly mean for human creativity itself. For the very concept of authorship and for the future of work in these deeply personal and culturally significant industries. The core question we'll be wrestling with throughout this deep dive, and one we hope you'll consider, is this. How will human and artificial creativity coexist in the years to come? It touches on everything from our legal frameworks to our very sense of identity as creators.
So let's step into the art studio first, because it really feels like AI has become a whole new kind of paintbrush in the visual arts. For years, painting was all about the human touch, years of practice, meticulous brushstrokes. But now we're talking about generative AI techniques like generative adversarial networks, or GANs, and diffusion models. What are we seeing in terms of what these tools can actually do right now? I mean, are they just editing photos, or is it something, well, deeper?
Oh, it's far more profound than just editing. These aren't just advanced filters. They're actually creating entirely original artwork from scratch, or seemingly from scratch. We're seeing everything from hyper-realistic paintings to abstract designs, all generated based on a simple text description or by learning from countless existing artistic styles. It's essentially automating processes that once took human artists years of training and dedicated manual effort. This leads to incredibly rapid prototyping of visuals and, fascinatingly, even birthing entirely novel artistic styles that we might not have conceptualized on our own.
And the tools available for this are just incredible, aren't they? I mean, you've got text-to-image models like OpenAI's DAL-E2, Midjourney's Stable Diffusion. As a user, you can just type a prompt, like surreal cityscape in the style of Van Gogh, and within seconds, the AI spits out multiple, often highly detailed images matching that description. How do these models even learn to do that? Is it just magic?
Huh. Not quite magic, but certainly a monumental feat of data and computation. Basically, these models are trained on literally millions upon millions of images and artworks scraped from the internet or licensed datasets. By analyzing this vast dataset, they learn an incredible range of styles, visual concepts, and crucially, the relationships between words and images. So when you type Van Gogh, the AI recalls patterns associated with his brushstrokes, color palettes, and common subjects from his training data. Then it applies that learned knowledge to your surreal cityscape concept. The outputs can be photorealistic or deeply stylized, and often show impressive coherence to your original prompt, sometimes surprisingly so. And it's not just about creating from scratch. AI art tools also offer these auxiliary functions, right? Things like style transfer, applying the style of one image onto another, or image upscaling for low-res pictures, or even colorizing old black and white photos. These functions alone make AI an incredibly valuable assistant to artists, even if they don't use the full generation features.
It's just wild to imagine a concept artist now. I mean, they used to spend hours sketching ideas, right? Trying to visualize different game characters or movie scenes. Now with AI, they can conjure up dozens of inspiration boards, rush ideas, visual starting points in mere seconds. An illustrator looking for quick iterations on different compositions or color schemes can do the same thing. That's a massive leap in efficiency, wouldn't you say?
It absolutely is. In essence, AI acts as a kind of creative assistant, providing that initial canvas or visual draft extremely quickly. The human artist then refines, tweaks, combines, or builds upon that. But here's the interesting paradox. While AI can produce these art-like outputs that are visually impressive, often stunningly so, it frequently struggles with specific nuanced detail.
Uh-huh. Like the infamous AI hands.
Exactly. Human hands are notoriously tricky for many AI models. Fingers might be missing, or there are too many, or they just look wrong. Or text within an image. AI often renders gibberish or distorted letters because it's thinking in pixels, not language, in that context. More fundamentally, though, AI creativity at its current stage is inherently derivative. The algorithm isn't truly inventing from some inner wellspring of imagination. It's recombining and mutating patterns it has seen in its training data. It might echo existing artworks or remix them in novel ways, but it doesn't possess what we understand as human intent or self-expression. There's a quote from Ahmed El-Gamal, who leads Rutgers Art and AI Lab. He puts it well. He says, if you define art as the communication of one's own sensibilities and feelings to say something about the world, then AI art must fall short, because no machine mind can have that urge and perhaps never will. For now, AI is best understood as a sophisticated tool, or maybe a new medium within art, rather than an independent artist with its own inner world.
That distinction between tool and artist, that's been at the very heart of some major controversies that have really set the art world buzzing, hasn't it? I remember the first big one, the sale of Edmond de Bellamy. That really made headlines.
Oh, that was a watershed moment, definitely.
Yeah.
Back in 2018, this portrait, created by the French art collective Obvious, using a Jan, it sold for an astonishing $432,500 at Christie's auction house. It depicted this sort of blurry gentleman in 18th century attire. And here's the kicker, right? The signature wasn't a human artist's name, but literally part of the algorithm's loss function, a line of mathematical code printed on the canvas.
Wow, just the code.
Yeah. The sale, which just blew past all the estimates, ignited this huge debate. Was this genuinely art? And who exactly was the artist? The Obvious Collective described their process as a collaboration. They curated the 15,000 classic portraits used for the training data, they tweaked the algorithm, they selected the final output. So they saw themselves as the human collaborators, and the AI as the machine collaborator. It forced everyone to start questioning what authorship really meant in this new landscape.
And then, just 4 years later, we saw Théâtre d'Opéra Spécial and an AI-generated artwork by Jason Allen win first place in the digital art category at the Colorado State Fair. Allen used Midjourney, one of those text-to-image tools, to create this really ornate, otherworldly opera scene. Beautiful image, actually. But when the news broke that an AI-generated piece had won, the art community absolutely exploded, didn't they? I remember seeing all the outrage online.
They certainly did. Critics on social media were decrying the death of artistry, saying things like, if creative jobs aren't safe for machines, then even high-skilled roles are in danger. They felt it was a shortcut that undermined years of human effort and skill development. But Allen defended himself. He stated he spent 80 hours refining the piece, choosing prompts, running variations, upscaling, touching it up, and he was transparent about using Midjourney. The judges stood by their decision, saying they judged the piece on its artistic merits, regardless of how it was made. This incident just clearly highlighted a deep rift. Some embrace AI as just another tool like Photoshop or a camera, while others see it as an existential threat to their profession and to art itself. It's a debate that's still very much alive.
And these weren't isolated incidents. We've seen other compelling examples, too. Back in 2016, there was the Next Rembrandt project. AI analyzed Rembrandt's entire body of work, right?
Yeah, and it generated an entirely new painting in his signature style. They even 3D printed it to mimic his brushstrokes and pigment texture. It looked uncannily like a lost masterpiece.
And then there's digital artist Refik Anadol's Machine Hallucinations. That was a big NFT sale, wasn't it?
Right, an immersive video installation sold as an NFT, that unique digital certificate of ownership, for over $270,000 at Christie's in 2019. What's fascinating there is the paradox. High commercial value, people are paying huge sums, yet under current U.S. law, it's likely uncopyrightable because of the lack of sufficient human authorship. It really exemplifies how AI art can be commercially valuable, but legally precarious, creating these new challenges for artists and collectors.
So it's not just about AI replacing artists, but also artists using AI in really interesting collaborative ways.
Exactly, and that's where it gets really interesting, I think. Many contemporary artists are incorporating AI directly into their practice in truly collaborative ways. So Gun Jung, for instance, works with these robotic arms guided by AI. They co-create paintings together, literally side by side, with the machine learning and responding to her strokes in real time. Yeah, it's amazing to watch. And artists like Mario Klingman and Anna Riddler, they use neural networks to generate elements for their art, but they treat the AI's output as raw material. They curate it, they manipulate it, they shave it into their final vision. These examples demonstrate AI's versatile role, not just as a standalone generator, but as a direct partner, or an integral element in an artist's creative process. It forces us to ask, is it the algorithm, the training data, or the human curator who is the true artist? Or is it some combination? There are no easy answers, and these incidents are forcing institutions, galleries, museums to kind of redefine art itself.
The shift in the nature of creative work must be profoundly impacting artists and their day-to-day workflows. Let's maybe compare a traditional art creation process with one assisted by AI. Traditionally, an artist conceptualizes an idea through sketches, maybe mood boards, pulling from their imagination, their experience. That can be time-consuming, right? And maybe limited by what they already know.
Right. And with AI, you can enter a few prompts, and it instantly visualizes dozens of concepts in minutes. It offers this vast range of options to spark inspiration, far beyond what you might come up with alone initially. The artist then becomes a curator almost immediately, selecting and refining the best concepts generated by the machine.
It almost sounds like the human is less of a painter or draftsman and more of a creative director in that scenario.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. When it comes to the actual creation and execution, traditional art relies heavily on skills built over years, drawing, painting, digital software mastery requiring detailed manual effort, lots of time. In an AI-assisted workflow, the artist really does become more of a creative director. They craft prompts, they generate initial images, they iterate by adjusting parameters or prompts, and then they often use digital editing tools like Photoshop to retouch, combine AI outputs, or add their own human-drawn elements on top. This dramatically shifts the skill requirement. It moves from mastery of traditional mediums towards mastery of prompt engineering.
That's the new buzzword, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Basically, knowing how to craft the most effective instructions for the AI, and also strong curation skills, knowing what looks good, what works. While traditional art knowledge, understanding composition, color theory, anatomy, that all remains incredibly valuable for judging and refining AI output, the barrier to producing visually decent images is significantly lowered. It kind of democratizes art creation to some extent, letting people visualize ideas who couldn't before.
So the time and efficiency gains must be just staggering then. A polished piece traditionally takes days or weeks, maybe longer. Revisions mean more manual redrawing or painting. With AI, initial images are generated in seconds or maybe hours for complex scenes. An artist can rapidly explore many directions, and revisions often involve just quick prompt tweaks or edits in other software, drastically cutting turnaround times. But does this speed come at any cost? Maybe to the unique vision an artist might develop over those longer, more traditional sketching hours.
It can, yeah. This efficiency often comes with a trade-off in artistic control and maybe originality. In traditional art, the artist has full control, every stroke is theoretically deliberate, and originality stems from their unique vision and execution. With AI, control is more indirect. You guide the AI, but you might get unexpected results, artifacts, weirdness. These can sometimes be serendipitous, leading to new ideas you wouldn't have had otherwise. They call them happy accidents. Or, frustratingly, they can include anomalies like those distorted hands or nonsensical details that you then have to fix manually, which takes time. Originality becomes tricky too, as AI primarily recombines known styles and elements from its training data. Artists worry about creating stuff that looks too generic, too AI-like or formulaic. Truly distinctive AI art might require custom models trained on unique data, essentially distilling an artist's personal style into their own AI tool. So the role of the artist is truly shifting. It's less pure craftsperson, perhaps, and more editor, curator, director. The artist's discerning eye for quality, for meaning, for coherence becomes absolutely paramount. They have to sift through potentially dozens, even hundreds, of AI-generated attempts to find the gold that aligns with their vision. And many artists are integrating AI subtly, to augment their creativity. An illustrator might generate background scenery to save time, then meticulously paint their main characters into it. This kind of hybrid approach clearly augments human creativity rather than just replacing it.
But not all artists are embracing AI with open arms. I imagine a significant segment views it as an existential threat, especially financially. For example, illustrators and graphic designers must worry that clients, especially in publishing, advertising, or game design, will increasingly opt for cheap, fast, AI-generated art instead of hiring professionals. If a book cover or a game character concept can be produced by an AI in, say, 30 seconds for pennies, why pay an artist for ridiculous work in hundreds of thousands of dollars? That fear can't be unfounded, can it?
No, it's definitely not unfounded. Stock image websites are already seeing a huge surge of AI images, some good, some terrible. And some clients are experimenting with AI to cut costs, especially for lower stakes visual needs. Artists are responding in really diverse ways. Many are actively learning these new AI tools, upskilling to stay competitive. They position themselves as experts in creative AI use, blending their human artistry with AI's efficiency, maybe offering faster turnaround times by using AI for initial drafts or variations. On the flip side, you see some artists emphasizing human authenticity. There's almost a revival of interest in traditional media hand-painted portraits, physical prints, unique sculptures as a countertrend. These works carry an irreplaceable mark of human creation, the touch of the hand. Artists are essentially branding their work as made by a person with personal emotion and experience, treating it like artisanal goods in a world flooded with potentially generic AI production.
And then there's the collective action. I've seen those no AI symbols plastered across online galleries like ArtStation. Many artists have been incredibly vocal in protesting the unauthorized use of their work for training AI models, haven't they? That seems like a major battleground.
Absolutely. Thousands of signed petitions and open letters. This pressure led major art communities like ArtStation and DeviantArt to implement opt-out features or clearer policies regarding AI-generated content, though the effectiveness is still debated. This is an ongoing battle for digital consent and fair compensation. Will artists get paid if their work trains the next big AI model? Beyond protests, artists are turning to legal challenges. In 2023, a group of visual artists filed a class action lawsuit against major AI image generators, like Stability AI and Midjourney. They accuse them of mass copyright infringement for training on millions of online images without permission or payment. By 2024, a U.S. court allows some of these claims to proceed, which was seen as a significant step. It indicated that artists may indeed have grounds to assert rights over how their style and creations are used by AI. This legal friction is far from resolved, but it's shaping the conversation around whether training AI on copyrighted art is fair use or if it requires licenses and compensation. It's a huge area of contention right now.
So wrapping up the visual art part, it sounds like AI is this double-edged sword, massively powerful, disruptive, exciting, and terrifying all at once.
That sums it up pretty well. AI is profoundly transforming visual art through tools that accelerate creation and open it up to non-artists, lowering the barrier to entry. But it's simultaneously disrupting fundamental notions of skill, authorship, ownership, and economic value. The art world is quite literally split. Some see AI as the next logical evolution, like photography disrupting painting or digital art changing illustration. They're excited by the new aesthetic frontiers. Others view it as an existential threat, fearing a deluge of soulless but technically competent images that will drown out human artists and devalue their labor. But here's the profound takeaway, I think. AI is forcing all of us, not just artists, to redefine what we truly value in art. Is it the flawless execution, the perfect image, or is it the messy, unique, irreplaceable human story behind the creation? The intent, the struggle, the perspective. The answer to that question, how society answers that, will shape the future of art far more than any algorithm will.
That really makes you think about what creativity actually means, doesn't it? Okay, let's move from the visual canvas to the auditory soundscape. Let's get into music. Often called the most human of art forms, maybe because it connects so directly to emotion. But music is also being reshaped by AI in profound ways. I mean, from composing melodies and harmonies to synthesizing realistic instrument sounds and even vocals. These AI systems are really proving they can generate music and assist in production. What are some of the most striking things AI can do in music composition right now?
It's really remarkable the progress just in the last few years. We've seen AI models creating original pieces across various genres. Way back in 2016, Sony's Flow Machines project produced Daddy's Car. Remember that? An AI-composed pop song deliberately made in the style of the Beatles after analyzing dozens of their tracks.
Yeah, it was pretty convincing, kind of eerie.
Right. More recently, systems like OpenAI's MuseNet and Jukebox have advanced significantly. They can generate multi-instrument MIDI compositions or even raw audio. Jukebox, for instance, could generate audio with singing and lyrics, trying to mimic the style of famous artists. The results were often a bit lo-fi or strange, but showed the potential. These models essentially predict the next note or the next bit of sound waveform based on the massive audio libraries they were trained on.
So it's not just basic melodies then, it can handle more complex stuff. What about full arrangements or even things like film scores?
Yes, absolutely. For accompaniment and arrangement, AI tools are now used to create background music or even draft film scores. One such tool you hear about is AIVA, that stands for Artificial Intelligence Virtual Artist. It's trained heavily on classical compositions and can generate quite cinematic orchestral pieces. And here's a significant milestone. AIVA was actually recognized back in 2017 as a composer by CECIN, the Music Rights Society in Luxembourg. This allowed its works to be registered and licensed, with the AI's owners, the humans behind AIVA, as the beneficiaries. That was a crucial precedent for the legal recognition, or at least registration, of AI-generated work. And the advancements in performance and sound synthesis are particularly striking, maybe even more unsettling for some. AI can now emulate instruments with incredible realism. That's been developing for a while. But the big leap is cloning human voices.
Ah, yes, the deepfake music phenomenon.
It's exactly. This was dramatically illustrated in 2023 by this anonymous creator calling themselves Ghostwriter. They produced Heart on My Sleeve, an AI-generated track that perfectly mimicked the voices and styles of superstars Drake and The Weeknd, singing an original duet they never actually performed. It went massively viral, millions of listens on TikTok and streaming platforms before it got pulled, and initially it fooled many people into believing it was a real leak or collaboration. It just highlights the dramatic capability and the ethical minefield of AI voice cloning. Beyond creation, AI is also assisting in music editing and mastering. Services like Lander use AI to analyze audio tracks and apply signal processing for automated mixing and mastering. This streamlines production, especially for independent artists or bedroom producers, handling tasks traditionally done by highly skilled and often expensive audio engineers.
Okay, so AI systems can now generate melodies, harmonies, lyrics, full arrangements, and render them with realistic instrumentation and even cloned vocals. They're getting remarkably good at capturing specific musical styles. But what about the nuances? You mentioned the soul earlier. Does AI-generated music really capture the soul or the deeper meaning we often find in human-made music?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think the consensus right now is, not yet, not really, not in the way humans do. The subtle nuances of music, true emotional storytelling, through melody and harmony, genuinely innovative songwriting that breaks molds, and cohesive long-form structure like a symphony or even a complex pop song, these are still really challenging for current AI. Much AI-generated music, while it might sound pleasant or technically competent, can often feel a bit generic, maybe bland, or it might meander without a clear sense of direction or narrative arc. The lyrics can be grammatically correct, but often feel emotionally hollow, nonsensical, or just stitched together cliches. And sustaining truly developing musical ideas over a longer piece remains difficult for AI without significant human guidance and curation. It's a bit like AI can learn the grammar of music, but not always the poetry or the deeper intent.
Despite those limits, the collaborative potential seems immense, just like we discussed with visual art. I remember hearing about the completion of Beethoven's unfinished 10th Symphony back in 2021. That's a remarkable example of human-AI partnership, isn't it? Using AI to channel a past master.
It absolutely is a fascinating project. Beethoven left behind only fragments, just sketches, for his 10th. A team of musicologists, composers, and AI researchers trained in AI on his entire body of work, symphonies, sonatas, quartets. The AI then suggested ways to complete the missing movements, generating variations and continuations based on Beethoven's style. Crucially, the human team meticulously curated these suggestions, selected the best bits, refined them, orchestrated them. It wasn't just the AI spitting out a symphony. When the full symphony premiered in Bonn, Germany, the reports were that listeners, even Beethoven experts, couldn't easily distinguish where Beethoven's original sketches ended and the AI's contributions, guided by humans, began. Ahmed El-Gamal, who was also involved in that project, viewed AI not as a replacement, but as a tool one that opens doors for artists to express themselves in new ways. It truly channeled the creative spirit, but with essential human oversight and artistry.
That's a powerful statement. So the music industry's response to all this AI-generated music must be quite varied then, probably even more complex than the art world's.
Indeed. It's all over the map. We've seen AI-composed albums released, like Taryn Southern's I Am AI back in 2018, where she collaborated heavily with AI tools, or projects like Skigi's entirely AI-only albums. These raise that question for audiences. Does the origin matter if the song is good? Some listeners say no, a good song is a good song, end of story. Others feel something is missing when they know an AI made it. Perhaps it's the knowledge of human emotion, struggle, or experience behind the music that they value. Then you have the rise of virtual bands and singers. Think of the holographic Japanese pop star Hatsune Miku, whose voice is entirely synthesized software. As AI voice cloning gets better and easier, entirely AI-driven virtual singers could become mainstream. And projects like Holly Herndon's Holly Plus are experimenting with allowing others to use an AI model of an artist's voice, but with shared royalties raising complex questions about identity, consent, and compensation in the digital age.
And AI is creeping into more functional music areas too, right? Like film scores.
Definitely. AI is making inroads in film and game scoring. Companies are offering customizable, royalty-free soundtracks generated by AI, which can even adapt dynamically to the mood or action in a video game. While this is efficient and affordable, especially for indie developers, it raises serious concerns for entry-level human composers who often rely on scoring gigs or library music sales. The stock music industry is already feeling the disruption. Why license a track when an AI can generate something similar, maybe not as good, but cheap and fully owned? But the most emblematic case, the one that really crystallizes the legal and industry panic, is undoubtedly the ghostwriter Drake Heart on My Sleeve incident we mentioned.
Right, that blew up fast.
It went viral almost overnight. Universal Music Group moved swiftly to get it taken down from streaming services, citing the unauthorized use of their artists' likenesses, specifically their voices. This raised critical legal questions immediately. Did Ghostwriter infringe on Drake's and The Weeknd's rights? The composition itself was new, but the sound, the vocal performance, was a deliberate imitation of their unique vocal identities. This touches on rights of publicity, which protect a person's name, image, and likeness, including their voice. Vice News asked the key questions. Who gets to choose whether these AI songs stay on streaming services or get taken down? Who gets paid for them? And how are old-fashioned human-generated songs supposed to compete with AI-generated ones, which require significantly less time and money? This whole episode triggered what some called an AI music civil war, pressuring record labels, streaming platforms, and lawmakers to urgently clarify copyright, trademark, and publicity laws in the age of AI soundalikes.
That sounds like a complete legal minefield. But beyond the legal issues, what's your take on whether a piece like Heart on My Sleeve truly qualifies as music in the same human sense? I mean, it sounds like Drake and The Weeknd, it has a beat, lyrics, but it wasn't them. Does that matter?
That's a really deep philosophical question, isn't it? And it's right at the heart of the debate. From a purely technical standpoint, sure, it is a sound recording. It has melody, rhythm, harmony, lyrics, the components of a song. But from a human perspective, music often derives its power, its resonance, from the intent of the artist, their lived experience, their unique perspective, their authentic voice, their story. When an AI merely mimics a voice or a style, it doesn't carry that same weight of human intent or experience. Many argue that this human element, the authentic expression, the vulnerability, the shared experience communicated through sound, is what truly makes music meaningful beyond just pleasant sounds. That's perhaps why you see artists like the band Yas HD co-writing albums with AI, but then performing alongside the machine, treating the AI almost like a new, unpredictable band member. It's about finding that synergy, that balance between human creativity and machine capabilities, not just replacement.
So how are musicians actually adapting to these profound changes? Are they mostly embracing AI as a useful new studio toy, or is there a lot of resistance and fear?
It's genuinely a real mix, varying a lot by genre and career stage. Many musicians are embracing AI as a powerful tool. Songwriters and producers use AI tools to overcome creative blocks, maybe generating a few chord progressions they wouldn't have thought of, or suggesting melody fragments to kickstart a song. AI-driven mixing and mastering plugins can analyze tracks and suggest EQ or compression settings, acting like an assistant engineer. Musicians who see AI as an opportunity welcome its suggestions. They often use it to augment their creativity, speed up workflow, but not replace their core artistic decisions. A survey of creators noted that those using AI often treat it like a brainstorming partner, or maybe an ultimate session player that's always available and never complains. But the human remains firmly in control as the director, the final arbiter of taste.
And we're seeing interesting business model innovations too, right? Like Grimes allowing an AI model of her voice to be used by anyone, but asking for a 50-50 royalty split on successful songs. That's a fascinating way to turn a potential threat into a revenue stream on her own terms, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It's a proactive approach, trying to shape how this technology integrates rather than just reacting against it. It allows artists to potentially manage AI versions of themselves and profit from them. But on the other hand, many musicians are deeply concerned, even fearful. They worry about a future where synthetic pop stars generated entirely by AI replace human artists, or where studios use AI to score entire movies without hiring human composers, drastically reducing work opportunities. Organizations like the U.S. Recording Academy, which oversees the Grammys, have had to update their rules pretty quickly. They've clarified that only human creators can be nominated for or win most awards, essentially guarding the top accolades against purely AI-created songs competing directly with human music. And established artists like Sting have publicly voiced concerns. He talked about the need to defend human capital against AI, highlighting fears about downward pressure on incomes and the potential for AI to dilute the value of human artistry.
Is there legal pushback happening too? Are musicians organizing?
Yes, definitely. Beyond individual statements, there's significant legal and lobbying pushback underway. Musicians, songwriters, publishers, and industry groups are calling for urgent updates to copyright law to address both the use of copyrighted music and AI training data, the input side, and the protection of AI-generated outputs that mimic human styles or voices, the output side. AISAC, that's the International Confederation of Authors and Composers Societies, put out a stark warning. Their study suggested that up to 24% of music creators' revenue could be at risk by 2028 if no proper safeguards are put in place regarding AI. They're advocating strongly for key principles: transparency, clearly labeling AI-generated music, mandatory licensing requirements for AI companies using copyrighted music for training, and the development of new royalty structures to ensure human creators aren't cut out of the value chain as AI music proliferates.
And similar to visual art, are some musicians doubling down on what humans do best, like live performance?
That's a major strategy, yes. An AI can create a flawless studio track, maybe even mimic a live feel to some extent, but it can't replicate the energy, the charisma, the improvisation, and the direct audience interaction of a genuine live concert. Many artists are emphasizing the importance of live performance, the stories behind their songs, the authenticity of their songwriting process, derived from their own lived experiences, things no AI could ever truly possess or replicate. They're essentially selling the unique human experience of music and the connection with the human artist as the ultimate differentiator in an age of potentially infinite machine-generated sound.
It's interesting how different genres seem to be reacting too, isn't it? Like you mentioned earlier.
It really is quite varied. In electronic music and hip-hop, genres that have always embraced technology and sampling, AI is often seen as just the next evolution. A cool new plugin, a powerful sampler, a tool for generating novel beats or textures. The attitude is often more experimental. In genres like classical and jazz, however, while some are intrigued by AI's compositional potential, like the Beethoven example, others are more skeptical, viewing AI as inherently lacking the deep emotional understanding, the improvisational spark, or the nuanced interpretation that a trained human composer or performer brings. There's also often a split between big-name artists, who might be more concerned about their brand being diluted or their voice being cloned without permission, and independent or emerging artists. Some independent artists actually see AI as a potential leveling tool, allowing them to produce higher quality demos or tracks without needing expensive studio time or hiring session musicians.
Could you maybe walk us through the workflow comparison again, but for music? How does it differ?
Sure. Traditionally, songwriting involves a human composer crafting melodies, chords, lyrics, often through trial and error, drawing on inspiration. This can take a lot of time, many iterations. With AI, a musician might ask the AI, give me 10 melody variations over this chord progression, or draft some verses for a blues song about heartbreak. It quickly provides a rough draft or building blocks, but the human still has to inject coherence, meaning, and personal style. For arrangement and instrumentation, traditional work involves manually arranging parts for different instruments, maybe hiring musicians. AI can now suggest full orchestrations, generate realistic drum patterns, or create different instrumental layers, stems that the artist can then pick from, modify, and combine.
So the human becomes more of a curator of AI suggestions.
Often, yes, or a co-creator using the AI's output as a starting point. In performance and recording, traditional music obviously relies on human performers in a studio or live setting. With AI, virtual instruments can generate parts without needing live players, or, as we discussed, AI voice cloning can potentially reduce the need for human singers for certain applications like demos or background vocals, maybe even leads eventually. Mixing and production, traditionally highly skilled crafts requiring trained ears and technical knowledge, now have these AI-driven automated services like Lander. They analyze tracks and apply processing to achieve a decent, commercially viable mix and master, making it accessible even for novices. Finally, iteration and editing are dramatically faster with AI. If you're not happy with a verse melody, you can have the AI generate 5 slightly different alternatives in seconds. The danger, though, is getting lost in endless tweaking because the options are infinite. Human judgment, knowing when something is good enough or right, becomes even more crucial to avoid analysis paralysis. So while AI clearly accelerates music production and expands a musician's sonic palette, it can also reduce the need for certain human skills or collaborations. Expressiveness, that human touch and performance, remains a key differentiator, and musicians often find themselves needing to consciously reintroduce that human feel at the final stage, maybe by playing over AI tracks or heavily editing AI performances.
This disruption clearly extends beyond individual musicians to the broader music ecosystem. You mentioned indie creators benefiting, but what are the bigger potential downsides?
On the positive side, yeah, it's a potential boon for independent creators. A YouTuber can generate custom background music without copyright strikes. A small game developer can dynamically score their entire game affordably. But the disruption is also significant, potentially reshaping the whole industry structure. We're looking at real potential job displacement for session musicians if AI can play a realistic bass line, composers who write library or production music, and maybe even some audio engineers or producers whose tasks get automated. If those projections, like the CSAC one, are even close to accurate, say 20% or more of music on streaming platforms being substantially AI-generated by 2028, that represents a huge volume of content displacing human-made work and the associated income. CSAC explicitly warns of a substantial transfer of value away from human creators towards the tech companies developing and owning the AI music tools, potentially risking nearly a quarter of human musicians' revenue globally.
Wow, 24% is a huge number. And that flood of content could make it even harder for artists to get noticed, right?
Yes, exactly. If AI enables orders of magnitude more music to be created and uploaded daily, discoverability becomes an even bigger challenge than it already is for human artists. Listeners might rely even more heavily on algorithmic recommendations from streaming platforms, and those algorithms could potentially favor AI-generated content if it's designed specifically to hit certain engagement metrics or trends. This leads to a crucial societal question. Will audiences ultimately care if the music they love is AI-made? Some music purists already call for clear labeling and transparency, similar to how some consumers actively seek out organic food or handmade goods. They want to know the origin. The value proposition for musicians might increasingly shift towards who they are as people, their unique story, their live presence, their connection with fans, not just the sound they produce, because AI might get very good at producing pleasant sounds. And underlying all this is the urgent need for updated legal frameworks, especially clarifying whether using someone's distinct musical style or critically their voice via AI constitutes infringement. New licensing regimes, maybe specific rights for digital voice replicas, seem almost inevitable in the coming years.
So, similar to art, it seems AI is poised to be both a powerful creative aid and a deeply disruptive force in music.
That's the reality. Like the synthesizer or the sampler before it, AI could eventually become just another accepted part of the music creation toolkit. But that probably only happens if it's managed in a way that respects, involves, and hopefully compensates human musicians fairly. And here's maybe the key insight from music right now. What's truly revealing isn't just AI's growing ability to compose pleasant notes or mimic styles, but its current inability to truly tell a story with a developing emotional arc over a longer piece, or to originate something genuinely surprising and deeply resonant from its own experience. This highlights that music's deepest power, the thing that connects us so profoundly, still seems to lie in human narrative, unique expressiveness, and authentic feeling qualities AI currently struggles to originate convincingly. The next few years will be absolutely formative as the industry experiments, artists adapt, and legal and ethical lines are drawn hopefully in a way that ensures the human heart of music isn't lost in a sea of algorithmic sound.
Okay, really fascinating stuff in music. Now let's shift our focus one more time to the realm of words, writing. Whether it's journalism, fiction, marketing copy, even coding AI, specifically large language models, is driving a revolution here too. I mean, these tools can generate coherent text on virtually any topic in almost any style, often at a level that passes for human written, at least at first glance. What does that mean for authors, journalists, marketers, students, and the entire literary world? What kind of content can these AI writing tools actually generate reliably?
It's truly transformative, perhaps even more broadly impactful than in art or music, because text is so fundamental to communication. The AI behind this writing boom is primarily large language models, or LLMs. You hear the names all the time. OpenAI's GPT series, like GPT-3, GPT-4, Google's Palm and Gemini models, Anthropic's Claude, and others. These models are trained on truly colossal amounts of text data, billions of words scraped from books, websites, articles, code repositories, conversations. Based on this training, they can produce paragraphs, full articles, dialogue, summaries, emails, marketing slogans, computer code, and even creative pieces like poems or short stories, all from a simple text prompt. For example, you can ask a tool like ChatGPT or Claude, write a 5-paragraph essay comparing the causes of the French Revolution, or draft a press release for a new eco-friendly coffee brand, or tell me a short story about a lonely robot who finds a flower, and it will generate that text in seconds. The grammar and coherence are often surprisingly good, especially on common topics. The main caveats are usually around depth, originality, and crucially, factual accuracy.
That's pretty astonishing capability for an AI. And what about mimicking specific styles? You hear about that a lot. Can it really do Shakespeare or sound like a casual blogger?
Absolutely. Style imitation is one of the things these LLMs excel at. You can prompt it to write in Shakespearean English, adopt a very casual conversational blog tone, mimic the formal style of a scientific paper, or even try to imitate a specific famous author's voice, if its training data included enough of their work. This stylistic flexibility is both a powerful creative feature allowing writers to experiment with different voices, and, naturally, it raises some serious concerns about impersonation and authenticity. AI is also incredibly useful for tasks like summarization and paraphrasing. It can digest long reports or articles and spit out key bullet points, or rephrase complex technical jargon into simpler terms, which can greatly speed up research, content creation, and editing workflows. LLMs can even serve as brainstorming partners. Writers can interview the AI to flesh out plot ideas, ask it to role-play characters to generate dialogue options, or just bounce ideas off it. They also facilitate multilingual writing, helping non-native speakers write more fluently or translating content while trying to maintain a consistent tone. And for certain kinds of technical and factual writing, AI can produce formulaic reports quite effectively. Think quarterly financial earnings summaries or basic sports game recaps. The Associated Press, for instance, has used automated systems for these kinds of routine stories for years. But, and this is we have to keep mentioning the critical caveat of hallucination.
Right, where the AI just makes things up but sounds confident.
Exactly. LLMs can confidently generate plausible-sounding but completely incorrect information, citing fake sources, misstating facts, or inventing events. This means human fact-checking and verification remain absolutely essential, especially for any nonfiction or informational writing. You simply cannot trust AI output blindly.
And there are specific tools popping up for different writing tasks too, right? Not just the general chatbots.
Oh yes, a whole ecosystem of specialized AI writing tools has emerged very quickly. For copywriting and marketing content, you have services like Jasper, formerly Jarvis, Copy.ai, and others. These are specifically designed to generate things like ad copy, social media posts, email marketing campaigns, product descriptions, or SEO-optimized blog articles from just a brief description or keywords. This is already significantly disrupting entry-level copywriting roles in freelance markets. Then you have AI writing assistants integrated into tools we use every day. Think of Grammarly, which goes way beyond grammar now, Microsoft Word's editor features, or Google Docs' Smart Compose and Help Me Write. These not only correct errors, but suggest ways to restructure sentences, improve clarity, match a specific tone, or even generate entire draft paragraphs or emails. And for creative writers, especially fiction writers, experimental tools like Sudowrite, Novell AI, or Scrivener's AI integration are appearing. These can help overcome writer's block by generating the next few paragraphs of a story based on what came before, offering different descriptive options, suggesting plot twists, or creating character dialogue based on profiles. The idea is to provide instant possibilities and keep the writer moving.
The power of these tools has been showcased, sometimes controversially, in actual literary experiments. I was fascinated by Stephen Marsh's 2023 novella, Death of an Author. He explicitly co-wrote the book with AI, specifically GPT-3, didn't he?
That's right. He used the AI to generate the majority of the text for a whodunit mystery novel, which he then heavily edited, curated, and structured into a cohesive story. It really raised fundamental questions about whether AI could genuinely produce literature and highlighted the significant role the human still plays in the creative heavy lifting, the plotting, the selection, the refinement, the voice.
So the AI did the typing, but he did the writing.
In a sense, yes. Marche himself noted that the human still had to do the really hard work of shaping the narrative, ensuring consistency, and making it actually engaging. It showed AI can produce serviceable, even sometimes interesting prose, but the true creative direction, the artistry, still came from the human author guiding the process. Another fascinating literary experiment was Sheila Heti's short story, According to Alice, which she published in The New Yorker. Heti overtly collaborated with a chatbot, but instead of trying to make the AI sound perfectly human or mimic her own style, she deliberately leaned into the AI's often bizarre, freakish, funny, and slightly nonsensical prose. She incorporated its weirdness as part of the art itself. This wasn't about imitation, it was about exploring genuinely new forms of text that emerged from the human-machine interaction. It suggested that writing with AI doesn't just have to be about efficiency or mimicry. It can produce something unique and unexpected, almost like a modern, machine-assisted form of surrealist automatic writing, where the AI's strange outputs actually spur new directions for human creativity.
Those experiments highlight the potential, but the real-world incidents have definitely brought the challenges into sharp focus.
Absolutely. We've seen several high-profile issues. In journalism, the tech news site CNET quietly used an internal AI tool to generate dozens of financial advice articles in late 2022 and early 2023. It backfired when readers and other journalists spotted significant factual errors, oversimplifications, and instances of phrasing that seemed suspiciously close to plagiarism from other sources. CNET had to issue major corrections and pause the initiative amid backlash.
Not a good look.
Not at all. It highlighted that even for seemingly formulaic financial explainers, AI wasn't reliable for accuracy or ethical sourcing without rigorous human oversight. Worse, perhaps, is the proliferation of spam websites using AI to churn out vast quantities of low-quality SEO-optimized content purely to attract clicks and ad revenue. This risks polluting the web with unreliable or just plain bad information, making it harder for users to find trustworthy sources. In academic and business writing, the impact is huge. AI is increasingly used for drafting reports, emails, memos, and students are widely using tools like ChatGPT for essays and assignments, leading to an arms race between AI writing and AI detection tools, and forcing educators to fundamentally reevaluate how they assess learning and critical thinking. Many institutions are now grappling with defining acceptable use versus this new form of plagiarism.
And AI text is being used for nefarious purposes too, right? Scams and misinformation.
Unfortunately, yes. AI's ability to generate convincing, grammatically correct, and contextually relevant text makes it a powerful tool for scammers creating highly personalized phishing emails or messages. It's also used for astroturfing, generating fake reviews, comments, or social media posts to create a false impression of popular support or consensus, making it harder for people to distinguish genuine human opinion from bot-driven manipulation online. Perhaps one of the most striking incidents specifically in the literary world occurred in early 2023 with Clarkesworld magazine, a highly respected science fiction and fantasy publication.
Oh, I remember reading about that. They got flooded.
Completely flooded. Shortly after ChatGPT became widely accessible, Clarkesworld experienced what the editor, Neil Clark, described as an out-of-hand surge of AI-generated story submissions. He went from receiving maybe 10, 20 suspicious submissions a month to hundreds in just a few weeks. Many were clearly low-effort, machine-written stories, often submitted under false pretenses. It overwhelmed their submission system, forcing the magazine to temporarily close submissions entirely. Clark lamented that business as usual won't be sustainable and expressed deep concern that this flood would ultimately hurt new, legitimate human authors trying to get published. This really highlighted the risk of established creative fields being diluted or even choked by a tidal wave of mediocre, easily produced, machine-made work.
And then there are the big legal battles, similar to what we saw in visual art. We're hearing about prominent authors like Sarah Silverman, George R.R. Martin, John Grisham, filing lawsuits against OpenAI and Meta. What's the core issue there?
It's fundamentally the same core issue as in visual art and music: copyright infringement based on the training data. These authors, often in class action suits, accuse the AI companies of illegally using their copyrighted books scraped from the internet or illicit shadow libraries to train the large language models without permission or compensation. They argue the LLMs are essentially derivative works based on their copyrighted material, and they've pointed to instances where the AI outputs closely mimic their writing style, or in some cases can even be prompted to regurgitate near verbatim passages from their books. These lawsuits are considered pivotal. Their outcome could potentially force AI companies to license the data they use for training, implement functional opt-out mechanisms for authors, or significantly change how these models are built and deployed. We've also seen a surge of AI co-authored or seemingly entirely AI-written books appearing on platforms like Amazon, particularly in niche nonfiction categories or formulaic genre fiction like romance or self-help. Quality varies wildly. In response, some sci-fi magazines and literary journals have explicitly banned undisclosed AI-written submissions, reacting to that Clarkesworld incident, and a general uptick in authors trying to pass off AI work as their own. As The New Yorker observed in a piece on this, we are rapidly heading into a world of exponentially abundant text. This sheer volume threatens to devalue certain types of writing, particularly functional or informational content, and it raises a deep anxiety among many writers about a loss of a certain way of life if over-reliance on these powerful LLMs degrades the craft, the nuance, and the thoughtful process of human writing.
So, faced with all this, how are writers actually adapting? Is it a similar spectrum to artists and musicians, some jumping in, some pushing back hard?
Exactly the same spectrum, yes. Many authors are actively exploring and using AI to enhance their productivity. They might leverage it for research assistance, brainstorming plot points or character ideas, generating outlines, drafting tricky query letters, or even writing marketing copy like book descriptions or social media posts. A survey conducted in 2023 by the Alliance of Independent Authors found that among those using AI, common uses were overcoming writer's block by generating prompts or continuations, treating it like a tireless writing partner that can spitball ideas 24/7. Crucially, these authors almost universally emphasize that they don't just copy-paste AI output. They review it critically, edit heavily, fact-check rigorously, and ensure the final text fits their own unique voice and intent. One author described AI as the ultimate writing buddy and assistant that helps accelerate the more tedious parts of the process, but with the human firmly remaining as the lead creative force, the author.
But on the other side, a large portion of writers refuse to use AI on principle, right? I imagine the unauthorized training on copyrighted material is a huge sticking point for them.
It's a massive part of it, probably the primary ethical objection for many. That same survey found that 84% of authors not using AI were avoiding it because they found the current tools ethically problematic. The top reason cited was that the models were trained on copyrighted material without permission or compensation. They literally used terms like stolen intellectual property or theft. For many of these writers, the personal enjoyment and satisfaction derived from the craft of writing itself is paramount. They simply don't want a machine doing that creative work for them, even if it's faster. It feels like cheating the process they love. Some also highlight environmental concerns, pointing to the significant energy consumption required to train and run these massive language models as another reason to abstain. And many writers are trying to find a complicated middle ground. They might feel comfortable using AI for peripheral tasks like generating keywords for online listings or drafting a quick synopsis for an agent, but draw a hard line at using it to write the core narrative or prose of their book or article. They grapple with the question: if AI significantly rewrites a paragraph for clarity or style, is it still truly my writing? Where is the line? Some equate it to working with a very proactive human editor, but worry that if everyone starts relying heavily on AI suggestions, writing styles might converge towards a bland, statistically average median, losing the unique idiosyncrasies and voices that make literature interesting.
A really significant moment for guarding the craft, at least in screenwriting, came in 2023 with the Writers Guild of America, WGA strike. A key part of their negotiation was about AI, wasn't it?
It was a landmark achievement for them, yes. The WGA successfully negotiated specific contract language to limit the use of AI in film and television writing. Their new agreement ensures several key protections. AI cannot be credited as a writer on a project. AI-generated text cannot be used to undermine a human writer's credit or compensation. Studios cannot force a writer to use AI tools if they don't want to. And crucially, AI-generated text cannot be considered source material or literary material in the way a book or previous script would be, meaning studios can't just feed an AI prompt and bypass hiring a writer for the initial draft. That was a pretty significant set of protections, demonstrating that collective bargaining can establish clear boundaries around AI use in a creative field. It will likely influence how other writing sectors, like publishing or journalism unions, approach AI.
What other adaptations are we seeing? Transparency, new skills.
Yes to both. Some writers are embracing transparency, either explicitly stating their work was co-created with AI, perhaps as a point of interest or honesty, or conversely, making 100% human-made a distinct brand point, anticipating that some readers will specifically seek out and value human-authored work. Disclosure norms are still forming. Finally, there's clearly a new skill evolving: prompt engineering specifically for text generation. Knowing how to phrase instructions, provide context, define constraints, and iterate with an AI to get the desired tone, style, and content is becoming crucial for those who do use these tools effectively. Some writers compare it to directing a very capable but sometimes clueless junior writer. You have to give clear instructions and supervise closely. Workshops and guides are emerging on how authors can best leverage AI, even using it creatively, like prompting an AI to simulate different types of test readers to get feedback on plot points or pacing. The very definition of writing is being challenged and expanded. Is it solely the physical act of putting words on the page? Or is it more broadly about conceiving ideas, structuring arguments, shaping narratives, and refining language? If it's the latter, then using AI for a first draft might, for some, feel less like cheating and more like using a very advanced dictation tool or outlining assistant.
So let's break down that writing process comparison, traditionally versus AI-assisted.
Okay. For idea generation and research. Traditionally, a writer brainstorms manually, reads extensively, takes notes. With AI, they can prompt a chatbot like ChatGPT or Perplexity for story ideas, ask for summaries of complex topics, get quick knowledge dumps on historical facts or scientific concepts, though again, always needing human verification of those AI-generated facts. Outlining and planning used to be purely human mental effort, maybe using index cards or software. Now, AI can draft initial outlines for articles, book chapters, or even complex fictional plots based on a premise, providing a basic structure or scaffold that the writer then critiques, modifies, and builds upon. The drafting stage, traditionally the most labor-intensive sentence-by-sentence work, can now leverage AI. A writer might ask the AI to draft a specific section based on their outline and notes, helping overcome the blank page syndrome. However, the writer must then carefully review, edit, rewrite, fact-check, and inject their own voice into that AI-generated text. The first draft often becomes a patchwork of human-written segments and heavily edited AI segments that the writer needs to harmonize.
And revision and editing, AI seems like a natural fit there.
It is. Revision and editing traditionally involve multiple human passes, maybe peer review, using grammar checkers. Now, AI tools act as much smarter editors. They can suggest significant improvements in clarity, conciseness, flow, and style consistency. They can check for tone mismatches. Some tools even try to act as pseudo-beta readers, offering feedback on pacing or character consistency, though that's still quite rudimentary. For finalization, AI can perform a very thorough last-pass proofread for typos and grammatical errors. It can even generate catchy title options, executive summaries, or marketing blurbs based on the finished text. But the human writer absolutely must provide the final review to ensure the work is accurate, authentic, and truly reflects their intended message and unique voice. So AI accelerates nearly every step of the writing process, sometimes dramatically, but it also adds new steps, primarily prompt crafting and meticulous, critical review and fact-checking. Quality control, especially guarding against AI hallucination and ensuring stylistic consistency, becomes absolutely paramount. The writer's role, for those using AI, often shifts from being the sole creator of every word to being more of a hybrid creator, editor, curator, fact-checker, and prompter orchestrating the process.
As AI becomes more common in writing, are we likely to see a split in the value of different kinds of writing?
That seems highly likely, yes. A stratification is probably emerging. Commoditized writing, think basic product descriptions, simple how-to guides, generic blog content for SEO farms, will likely become largely AI-produced because it's good enough and vastly cheaper. The market value for purely human creation of that kind of content could plummet. High-value writing, on the other hand, things like in-depth investigative journalism, literary fiction with a unique voice, expert analysis based on deep experience, truly original thought leadership, will likely increasingly emphasize the human element as its core value proposition. For these, the author's unique perspective, insight, research, style, and trustworthiness will be the selling points. Publishers and platforms might even start offering a human guarantee or certification for such work. There could also be a growing middle ground of collaborative writing, where AI handles initial drafts or research summaries, but humans provide the critical thinking, structuring, editing, and final polish. This might lead to new roles like specialized AI content editors.
But there are deeper concerns too, right? If students rely heavily on AI for essays, will they fail to develop crucial critical thinking and writing skills themselves? If businesses auto-generate all their reports, do they risk losing nuance and clarity of thought within the organization?
Those are very real concerns being actively debated in education and business. There's a worry that as AI-generated text saturates the internet, future AI models will increasingly be trained on text that was itself written by AI, potentially leading to a feedback loop of increasingly bland, derivative, regurgitated language and AI echo chamber that could degrade the quality and maybe even the trustworthiness of our collective knowledge ecosystem over time. However, many writers and thinkers argue that truly good writing, the kind that endures, is fundamentally about more than just competent prose. It's about original insight, deep research, lived experience, emotional resonance, a unique perspective on the world qualities that current AI cannot genuinely originate. Thus, the argument goes, human writers who offer these deeper qualities, who bring genuine novelty, expertise, or profound authenticity to their work, will still stand out and find an audience. An AI might be able to draft a technically competent mystery novel by analyzing thousands of others, but a human author can infuse it with personal anxieties, specific cultural observations, or a truly unique narrative voice derived from their own life, creating something truly novel and moving in a way AI likely can't replicate. So in the writing domain, the emerging picture seems to be AI potentially taking over many of the mechanical aspects of text production. But the core art of writing, constructing meaning, building worlds, conveying emotion, injecting soul remaining a profoundly, perhaps definitionally, human endeavor.
Wow. Okay, so we've looked at visual art, music, and writing individually. Now let's broaden the lens for the last part of our deep dive. Let's talk about the overarching societal, legal, and ethical implications that cut across all these creative fields. This feels like where the really big, thorny issues lie.
Absolutely. The rise of AI creativity is forcing society to confront profound new questions about authorship, ownership, intellectual property, economic value, and the very nature of human creative labor. It's a massive shift. One of the thorniest issues, as we've touched on, is authorship and copyright. Current copyright law in many major jurisdictions, notably the U.S., fundamentally requires a human author for a work to be eligible for copyright protection. The U.S. Copyright Office has been pretty clear and consistent on this. Works generated entirely by AI without sufficient human creative input or control cannot be copyrighted. We saw this play out in the case of Christina Kastanova's graphic novel, Zarya of the Dawn. The Copyright Office granted registration for the book as a whole, protecting her text and the arrangement of images she created, but explicitly excluded the individual images generated using Midjourney, ruling they lacked the necessary human authorship.
And there was that AI system, Debus, trying to be named as an inventor on patents.
Right, the Debus AI system. Its creator, Stephen Thaler, tried to have Debus listed as the inventor on patents in multiple countries. He argued the AI genuinely conceived the inventions. But patent offices in courts around the world, including the US, UK, and European Patent Office, consistently rejected this, reaffirming that inventors and authors must, under current law, be human beings.
So this creates a really weird situation, right? AI-generated content can have substantial monetary value, like that $432,500 painting, but it often lacks legal copyright protection. What does that mean practically?
It creates a significant legal gap, a paradox almost. The person who prompted the AI, who curated the output, who maybe even invested significant time and skill in refining it, might find they have little legal recourse if someone else simply copies and uses their AI-generated image, music, or text. Because they aren't considered the legal author, they can't claim copyright infringement in the traditional sense. This uncertainty has led to proposals for new legal frameworks. Some scholars and policy groups suggest creating a new, distinct category of intellectual property protection, specifically for human-AI collaborative works, recognizing the nuanced contributions of the human creator even when using powerful AI tools, maybe something like a shorter term of protection or different rights. However, institutions like the U.S. Copyright Office seem hesitant, currently seeing little incentive to create new rights for AI output and preferring to maintain the principle that copyright exists to incentivize human creativity. It's also worth noting that legal approaches differ internationally. The UK has a somewhat obscure, rarely tested provision from 1988 that grants copyright for computer-generated works to the person who made the arrangements necessary for the creation of the work. And courts in China have recently suggested that sufficiently detailed and creative prompts guiding an AI could potentially grant the human prompter copyright over the resulting AI-generated images. So the global landscape is fragmented and very much in flux.
Another huge legal battleground is the training data itself. Is it legal for AI companies to train their models on billions of copyrighted images, songs, and texts without permission or payment?
That's arguably the central conflict right now. Artists, authors, musicians, publishers, and record labels are arguing forcefully that this constitutes mass copyright infringement, essentially industrial-scale plagiarism or theft of their work to build competing commercial products. The AI developers, on the other hand, typically claim this training process is analogous to how humans learn by observing and analyzing vast amounts of information and should therefore be considered fair use under copyright law, particularly in the U.S. They argue they aren't distributing copies of the original works, just learning statistical patterns from them.
But it feels different when a machine does it at such scale and can sometimes reproduce parts of the originals.
Exactly. Critics point out the sheer scale is unprecedented, and the fact that AI models can sometimes regurgitate or reproduce recognizable chunks of their training data makes the just learning patterns argument more complicated. It feels less like inspiration and more like memorization and recombination at times. As we mentioned, as of early 2024, there were at least 16 major lawsuits filed by creators and rights holders against leading AI companies like OpenAI, Google, Meta, Stability AI, and Midjourney, specifically challenging the legality of their training data practices. The outcomes of these lawsuits could be absolutely transformative, potentially forcing the entire AI industry to license the data they use, implement robust opt-out systems for creators, or fundamentally change how models are trained.
Beyond the strict legality, there's a strong ethical dimension around attribution and style mimicry, isn't there?
Very much so. Many human creators feel it's fundamentally unfair, even if technically legal right now, for AI tools to be able to instantly mimic their unique, hard-won artistic style or vocal likeness without any consent, credit, or compensation. If an AI generates a painting that is clearly in the style of a specific living artist, or a song that sounds exactly like a particular singer, many argue that original creators should have some say, or at least be acknowledged. Their signature brushstrokes, melodic patterns, or vocal timbre might appear in AI outputs derived from training on their work, essentially creating unattributed copies or derivatives of their artistic identity. This feels like a misappropriation of style or persona, concepts that traditional copyright law doesn't protect very well. Copyright protects the specific expression of an idea, not the underlying style or idea itself. Society might move towards new norms, ethical guidelines, or even specific rights of publicity laws that require AI tools to disclose prominent influences in their output or obtain licenses for emulating specific individual styles or voices, giving credit where it's due.
Okay, so if the training data is one legal minefield, what about the outputs? If an AI accidentally spits out something that is clearly copyrighted, who's liable?
That's another huge gray area with potentially massive financial implications. If an AI model, prompted by a user, generates an image that is substantially similar to an existing copyrighted photograph or music that incorporates a protected melody, who is legally responsible for that infringement?
Is it the user who wrote the prompt?
Maybe. Or is it the company that developed and deployed the AI model, which contained that copyrighted material within its learned patterns? Or maybe both? Current law isn't clear, and it likely depends on the specific circumstances, how much control the user had, how directly the output copied the original, whether the AI company took reasonable steps to prevent such regurgitation. If an AI output is found to be infringing, whoever distributed or publicly displayed that output could potentially be held liable for unauthorized reproduction. This legal risk is a major reason why AI companies are actively working on techniques to reduce the likelihood of their models directly copying training data. It's also why some companies are pursuing licensing deals.
Like licensing the training data from the start.
Exactly. A potential future path, maybe the most stable one legally, is for AI developers to proactively strike deals with content owners, publishers, record labels, stock photo agencies, artists' collectives to license their catalogs for training purposes. We're already seeing moves in this direction. Google and Universal Music Group reportedly explored a partnership for licensing artists' voices and melodies for AI music generation. Adobe made a big point of training its Firefly AI image generator only on Adobe stock licensed images and public domain content, specifically to avoid copyright issues and allow them to offer legal indemnification to their enterprise customers using the AI outputs commercially. This focus on ethically sourced training data could become a significant competitive advantage and market differentiator.
It sounds like a split might emerge, like you mentioned earlier, maybe between open models trained on everything and closed models trained on licensed data.
Precisely. There's a real tension building between the ethos of open-source AI models, which are often trained on vast, uncurated internet scrapes, including lots of copyrighted material, and proprietary models being developed by companies like Adobe, or potentially through licensing deals, which use carefully curated and legally cleared datasets. Some people are drawing an analogy to the early days of digital music. The open-source scrape-everything approach is like Napster and the Wild West of peer-to-peer file sharing, potentially facing massive legal challenges over infringement. The licensed, curated data approach is more like Spotify or Apple Music, legal, controlled, and involving payments back to rights holders. It's quite possible that if copyright lawsuits against open models succeed, the future of commercially viable generative AI might shift significantly toward these more controlled, licensed ecosystems.
Let's talk about the economic impact and the future of creative labor. We touched on job displacement, but how significant could it be?
The potential economic impact is huge and, frankly, quite worrying for many creative professionals. AI is clearly poised to automate certain creative tasks, augmenting some roles while potentially replacing others entirely. Jobs involving more routine or formulaic creative work seem most vulnerable initially. Think generating basic illustrations for blog posts, composing simple background music or jingles, writing standard marketing copy or product descriptions, maybe entry-level photo retouching or translation work, concept artists, stock photographers, junior copywriters. These roles might see declining demand or downward pressure on rates as AI alternatives become good enough for some clients.
But new roles might emerge too.
Yes, that's the counterargument. New roles are emerging. like AI model trainers or curators, prompt engineers who specialize in getting optimal results from AI ethics consultants, or artists who specialize in integrating AI into complex, human-led creative projects. The question is whether these new roles will be sufficient in number and compensation to offset the losses elsewhere. History suggests technological shifts often create new jobs, but the transition can be painful and uneven. Some studies are trying to quantify the risk. That CISAC study we mentioned projected that up to 24% of music creators' income could be at risk by 2028 due to AI substitution, primarily impacting composers and performers whose work might be replaced by AI generation in areas like production music or session work. The AI music market itself is projected to grow significantly, potentially transferring billions in value from human creators to the tech companies providing the AI tools, unless new licensing and royalty structures are implemented.
Beyond jobs, what about the sheer volume of content? If AI makes creation near instantaneous and near free, what does that do to culture?
That's a profound question about quality versus quantity. The risk is a potential content glut, an overwhelming tsunami of AI-generated images, songs, articles, and videos flooding the internet and media platforms. This could make it incredibly difficult for human-created work, especially from emerging artists, to gain visibility and attention. Competition for eyeballs and eardrums would intensify dramatically. We might become even more reliant on algorithms and powerful platform curators to filter the noise, potentially reinforcing mainstream tastes or creating filter bubbles. There are also concerns about cultural homogenization. If AI models are trained primarily on existing popular works, they might tend to generate outputs that mimic those mainstream styles, leading to a flood of derivative feeling, statistically average content, and potentially stifling genuine innovation or niche creativity. The New Yorker noted this buzz of anxiety about a potential degradation of quality and diversity, a future where we settle for AI's mediocre competence instead of nurturing human originality.
But the flip side is democratization, right? AI could empower more people to create.
That's the optimistic view, and it's also valid. AI tools could lower the barrier to entry for creative expression, empowering diverse voices and allowing people without traditional artistic training or expensive equipment to bring their ideas to life visually, musically, or textually. This could lead to an outpouring of new ideas, new hybrid genres, interactive formats, and highly personalized content tailored to niche interests. We might see new forms of creativity emerge specifically enabled by AI's unique capabilities.
Okay, let's dive into the ethics. Consent and credit seem like huge ethical imperatives.
Absolutely fundamental. The ethical principle that creators should have control over whether their works are used to train AI models is gaining broad consensus, even if the legal mechanisms are still catching up. The backlash against unauthorized data scraping has led to AI companies belatedly implementing opt-out mechanisms or respecting website protocols like robots.txt. Ideally, the future standard might move towards explicit opt-in systems or clear licensing frameworks where creators can grant permission and potentially be compensated for the use of their work in AI training. Giving credit or attribution when AI heavily borrows from specific artist styles also feels like an ethical necessity for transparency, even if not legally mandated yet.
What about bias in AI creativity?
That's another critical ethical concern. AI models learn from the data they are trained on. If that data reflects existing societal biases like gender stereotypes in job roles depicted in images, or racial biases in language used online, the AI will likely perpetuate and potentially even amplify those biases in its outputs. For example, early image generators often produce stereotypical depictions when prompted with certain professions or nationalities. Ensuring diversity in training data and actively working to mitigate bias in AI models is an ongoing technical and ethical challenge for developers. Fairness is crucial if these tools are to be used equitably.
And the issue of plagiarism and authenticity seems newly complicated by AI.
It really is. Passing off AI-generated work as entirely one's own original human creation without disclosure is emerging as a new form of academic dishonesty, journalistic misrepresentation, or artistic fraud. Educational institutions, publishers, and grant organizations are actively grappling with how to define and detect unacceptable levels of undisclosed AI assistance. Establishing clear norms and expectations around transparency is becoming essential for maintaining trust.
There's also a deeper, maybe more philosophical, ethical question about devaluing human creativity itself, isn't there?
Yes, this underlies much of the anxiety. If AI can produce creative works faster, cheaper, and sometimes almost as well as humans in certain domains, does that diminish the perceived value of human skill, effort, and talent? If companies increasingly rely on AI for creative tasks, leading to fewer opportunities for human artists, musicians, and writers to develop their craft, earn a living, and contribute to culture, could that lead to a long-term loss of artistic traditions, mentorship, and creative community? This concern about the potential hollowing out of human creative ecosystems, even if AI produces superficially impressive results, is a profound ethical consideration about the kind of future we want to build.
Are policymakers actually addressing these ethical concerns in regulations?
They are starting to. The European Union's AI Act, for example, includes provisions considering disclosure requirements for certain AI systems, including those generating content. The idea is that users should generally know when they're interacting with an AI or consuming AI-generated material to prevent deception. There's also ongoing discussion in various forums about potential mechanisms like compensatory funds or levies on AI services that could redistribute some value back to human creators whose works fuel the AI economy. The goal often stated is to find a win-win scenario that balances fostering AI innovation with protecting human creators and ethical principles.
And what about us, the audience? How do consumer attitudes and the need for labeling fit in?
Consumer attitudes are still evolving, but there seems to be a growing desire, at least among some segments of the public, for transparency. People may feel they have a right to know if the song they're listening to, the article they're reading, or the artwork they're admiring was created by a human, or an AI, or some collaboration thereof. This is driving calls for clear labeling, watermarking, or metadata standards for AI-generated content. However, implementing this reliably is technically challenging, and it remains to be seen how much the average consumer will ultimately care, especially if the AI content is engaging or useful. Younger generations who grow up with AI might have very different expectations around authenticity. Finally, creators themselves face their own ethical choices when using AI. Is it ethical for a journalist to use AI to draft an article without disclosing it? Is it okay for a musician to use an AI voice clone of a famous singer on their track? Should a visual artist reveal if their backgrounds were AI generated? These norms are being actively negotiated within creative communities right now.
It really feels like we're in this intense period of cultural negotiation trying to figure out the right balance.
That's exactly what it is. A profound cultural negotiation. We're collectively deciding how much we want to integrate AI into our most human forms of expression. The optimistic vision sees AI as a liberating force, expanding creative possibilities, removing drudgery, and allowing humans to focus on higher-level meaning and innovation. The pessimistic vision sees human creators marginalized, creativity commoditized into bland, algorithmic outputs, and culture potentially stagnating. The reality will likely be a complex, messy middle course, shaped crucially by the choices we make now in our laws and our business practices, and in the values we prioritize as creators and consumers. Do we prioritize efficiency above all else, or do we actively safeguard space for human nuance, originality, and imperfection?
So let's try to look ahead then. Peering towards the end of this decade, say 2030, what does the creative landscape realistically look like? I'm picturing AI collaboration being just everywhere, seamlessly integrated.
I think that's a very likely scenario. Ubiquitous AI collaboration. Expect AI features to be deeply baked into almost all standard creative software. Think Adobe Photoshop with powerful generative fill and scene creation tools, music DWs like Ableton Live or Logic Pro offering AI-generated drum patterns, bass lines, or even harmonic suggestions on demand, word processors like Microsoft Word or Google Docs continuously suggesting phrase completions, stylistic improvements, or even drafting entire sections based on context. Creators in many fields will increasingly act more like directors, conductors, or editors, guiding these powerful AI assistants rather than executing every single step manually. This could solidify the emergence of new specialized roles we talked about, like the prompt engineer, or maybe an AI creative director, individuals who excel specifically at eliciting the best, most interesting, or most aligned creative output from AI systems. Their skill won't be pixel pushing or note placement, but creative specification and curation.
What about the content itself? You mentioned personalized and interactive possibilities. That sounds like a pretty radical shift from static media.
It could be, yes. Personalized and interactive content enabled by real-time AI generation is a fascinating frontier. Imagine music streaming services that don't just play playlists, but generate music dynamically in real time to perfectly match your current mood, activity, or biometric data.
Wow, like a truly personal soundtrack.
Exactly. Or consider dynamic novels where the reader's choices don't just lead down pre-scripted branches, but actually cause an AI to rewrite plot points, character interactions, or even the prose style on the fly to create a truly unique narrative experience for each reader. Combine this with augmented reality, AR, and virtual reality, VR, and you can see entirely new art forms emerge. AI-generated 3D worlds that constantly evolve. AR art exhibits overlaid on the real world that change based on the viewer's location or perspective, or virtual concerts where AI-driven visuals and even musical elements respond dynamically to audience reactions or participation. Content could transform significantly from fixed, finished products to fluid, responsive services or experiences.
And will AI lead to completely new genres or art forms that we can't even imagine yet?
History suggests new technologies always catalyze new artistic genres, and AI will likely be no different. We can expect the emergence of distinct AI art movements, maybe something like neural expressionism, where artists intentionally push AI models into producing surreal, glitchy, or unpredictable outputs, and embrace those machine hallucinations or artifacts as a core part of the aesthetic. Or perhaps more sophisticated forms of human AI performance art, where AI generates poetry, music, or visuals live on stage in response to a human performer, creating a unique improvisational dialogue between human and machine. We'll also likely see more AI used for controversial revival or continuation projects, attempting to generate new works in the style of long-dead masters, like a new Shakespeare play based on analyzing his canon, or a lost album by a famous deceased musician generated from their existing recordings. While ethically tricky and perhaps artistically questionable to purists, the public fascination with using AI to seemingly resurrect or extend the legacies of past creators is likely to continue. And as multimodal AI models become more capable handling images, text, sound, and video together, we could see the rise of truly multidimensional AI creations. Imagine being able to generate a complete short film script, visuals, character voices, soundtrack from a single detailed text prompt. This could birth entirely new forms of rapid, low-budget indie filmmaking or multimedia storytelling.
How will the industries themselves adapt? Education, unions, platforms?
Industry transformation and adaptation will be crucial and likely ongoing through 2030. In education, art schools, music conservatories, and writing programs will need to integrate AI literacy into their curricula. They'll likely teach human-AI co-creation skills alongside traditional techniques, focusing on critical judgment, ethical use, and leveraging AI as a tool rather than just fearing it. Guilds and unions, following the WGA's and SAG-AFTRA's lead from their 2023 strikes, will continue to lobby for strong contractual protections regarding AI use, especially concerning compensation, credit, and the unauthorized use of actors' voices and likenesses through AI cloning, deepfakes. This will be a continuous negotiation. We'll likely see new platforms and marketplaces emerge specifically for AI-generated content, but also perhaps for licensing datasets. Maybe platforms where artists can register their work and explicitly sell rights for it to be used in AI training under specific terms. Or platforms for commissioning custom AI art or music from human AI directors. Conversely, as AI content becomes ubiquitous, a counter-industry focused on authenticity verification might grow. Think sophisticated digital watermarking, Turing test certificates for human-made art, or using blockchain technology to create immutable records, proving the human creative process behind a work, catering to a premium market that specifically values authentic human art.
And how will audiences and culture shift in response to all this?
Audience perceptions and cultural norms will inevitably shift too. People might gradually broaden their definition of creativity to include the act of skillfully prompting, curating, and refining AI outputs. As AI-created or AI-assisted works become more common in galleries, on playlists, and in bookstores, the public will continuously renegotiate what they consider art or authored work. We've already seen AI works sold at major auctions. By 2030, it would be surprising to see AI-assisted works regularly winning mainstream awards, perhaps in dedicated categories initially. At the same time, we might see a strengthening counter-movement, a kind of nostalgia for the human-made. Similar to the resurgence of vinyl records or craft beer, some consumers will likely place a higher value on handmade, analog, or purely human-created art, music, and literature, seeking authenticity and connection in response to the proliferation of synthetic media. And with AI enabling a potential creative surplus, we might see an explosion of content catering to extremely niche interests in fan communities. AI could empower individuals to generate vast amounts of fan fiction, custom game mods, or personalized artwork within their specific fandoms, fostering vibrant microgenres and participatory cultures.
What about the legal and regulatory landscape by 2030? Will the laws have caught up?
Catching up is the hope, but legal systems move slowly. By 2030, we can expect some clearer legal frameworks, but likely still with significant international variation. Copyright law might be updated, perhaps through new legislation or landmark court decisions, to better address AI. This could involve clarifying the requirements for human authorship in AI-assisted works, potentially creating new forms of protection for works that meet a certain threshold of human creative control, AI-assisted but human-guided works. Or maybe introducing sui generis rights, unique, specific legal rights designed for outputs that don't neatly fit traditional copyright, perhaps for AI-generated works based on licensed data. Compulsory licensing schemes where AI companies pay into a fund distributed to creators whose works are used are another possibility being discussed. Regarding training data, laws might emerge requiring explicit opt-in systems for using copyrighted works, or mandating compensatory payments or levies for creators whose works are ingested by AI models. The outcome of current lawsuits will heavily influence this. Laws addressing the right of publicity and deepfakes will likely become stronger and more specific, explicitly prohibiting the unauthorized commercial use of a person's voice, likeness, or unique style via AI generation, as we're already seeing legislative efforts in places like California and Tennessee aimed at protecting musicians and actors. However, different countries will likely adopt varying approaches, some more permissive towards AI developers, others more protective of human creators. This international divergence could lead to complexities like AI companies forum shopping to base their operations in jurisdictions with more favorable laws.
And the deeper social implications. How might this change our sense of self as creative beings?
That's the big philosophical territory. By 2030, the widespread presence of AI co-creators will likely force society to reflect more deeply on what human creativity truly means and why we value it. If an AI can generate a technically perfect painting or a profoundly moving piece of music, does that challenge your sense of human uniqueness? Perhaps paradoxically, it might lead us to appreciate human creativity more, but for different reasons. We might increasingly value not just the final product, but the process behind it, the artist's intention, their struggle, their unique life story and perspective that informs the work, the messy journey of creation elements that an AI, no matter how sophisticated, cannot replicate. The story of the creator might become as important as the creation itself. Will we see AI develop genuine creativity or consciousness or rights by 2030? That seems highly unlikely based on current trajectories. AI is still fundamentally a tool reflecting patterns and data, not a sentient being with inner drives. The provocative possibility might be discussed, but actual AI sentience remains firmly in the realm of science fiction for the foreseeable future. Finally, there's the question of skills. Will AI erode essential human skills? Some traditional craft skills might become less central, yes, but new skills like critical thinking, creative problem solving, prompt engineering, ethical judgment, and the ability to collaborate effectively with AI systems will likely become more important. It might be analogous to how calculators changed the need for complex mental arithmetic, but didn't eliminate the importance of understanding mathematical concepts. Foundational human creative skills, storytelling, emotional expression, critical aesthetic judgment will likely remain crucial, perhaps even more so as the differentiators in an AI-saturated world.
So it sounds like the future is definitely one of hybridization and redefinition, not simple replacement.
Exactly. The future of creative industries with AI, looking towards 2030 and beyond, seems destined to be one of profound hybridization and continuous redefinition. The old boundaries between artist and tool, creator and audience, human expression and algorithmic generation will continue to blur in fascinating and sometimes unsettling ways. There will absolutely be turbulence, ongoing job displacement in certain sectors, intense legal battles over copyright and ownership, and significant cultural shifts in how we value and consume creative work. But alongside the challenges, there will also be immense innovation, entirely new art forms and genres emerging, powerful new tools democratizing creative expression, and previously unimaginable collaborations between human minds and artificial intelligence, pushing the boundaries of imagination. The hope, I think, is that by navigating these complex, practical, legal, and ethical challenges wisely, proactively, and with a focus on human values, we can steer towards a future where AI genuinely serves as a powerful boon to human creativity, expanding our potential, removing tedium, fostering new ideas while ensuring that human ingenuity, emotion, and expression remain firmly, vibrantly at the heart of our culture.
As we wrap up this deep dive then, the core message really seems clear. Artificial intelligence is undeniably transforming visual art, music, and writing. It's not about AI outright replacing human creativity, at least not in its entirety or its essence, but it is fundamentally reshaping how creative work gets done, who gets to do it, and ultimately what it means to be a creator in the 21st century. We've seen the incredible potential benefits, the democratization of creation, giving amateurs powerful tools to express their ideas visually or musically without needing years of traditional training. And for professionals, a massive potential boost in productivity, handling repetitive or time-consuming tasks so human creators can perhaps focus on the higher-level aspects of creativity, ideation, and emotional expression. AI can be a powerful partner, a tireless assistant, even a surprising muse, inspiring new forms and pushing the boundaries of imagination.
Absolutely. But the challenges, as we've explored, are equally pronounced and, frankly, quite daunting. AI's uncanny ability to mimic styles and generate content based on patterns learned from vast data sets of human creations raises those urgent, complex questions about authorship, ownership, and fair compensation. Who truly owns an AI-produced artwork that visually echoes the styles of thousands of artists whose work was used in training, often without their knowledge or consent? How do we, or should we, reward the human creators whose original songs, stories, and images form the foundation for the AI's capabilities, especially when that AI output then directly competes with our own ongoing work in the marketplace? This isn't just abstract theory. As we noted, artists, authors, and musicians are actively fighting in court what they perceive as mass theft or unfair exploitation of their intellectual property. And the ability of AI to clone voices, mimic writing styles, and generate deepfakes blurs the lines of authenticity, enabling potential fraud, misinformation, and the erosion of trust. This is why that careful reevaluation of our legal frameworks, ethical norms, and potentially even our definition of creativity itself is so critically important right now, as evidenced by efforts like the Writers Guild strike successfully negotiating limits on AI use.
The societal implications really ripple outwards too, beyond just the legal sphere. Many creators worry, understandably, that an unfettered flood of AI generation could genuinely devalue human creative labor, saturating markets with cheap, instantly made content that makes it incredibly difficult for human-crafted art, music, or writing, especially work that is nuanced, original, or challenging to get noticed, appreciated, or financially viable. There's a real risk, some argue, of hollowing out the creative middle class, leaving only huge stars and hobbyists. But as you suggested, it's probably not a simple binary narrative of AI completely replacing humans. It's more likely that AI is profoundly shifting the creative landscape, changing the terrain, not necessarily emptying it entirely. Just as photography didn't kill painting but radically changed its purpose and form, AI will likely change art, music, and writing in ways we can't fully predict yet. The more routine, functional, or derivative parts of creative work might increasingly be automated, while human creativity may need to focus even more intensely on what AI can't do: genuine originality, deep emotional connection, critical perspective, complex narrative, the unique human touch.
Ultimately, human creativity, our innate drive to express, to explore, to connect, to make meaning, is far from obsolete. In fact, it becomes arguably more important in the age of AI. It is the guiding human force that gives AI-produced content its purpose, its context, and its ultimate meaning. The completion of Beethoven's 10th Symphony, for instance, was an astonishing technical feat by the AI, but it would have been impossible and meaningless without the immense historical knowledge, musical expertise, aesthetic judgment, and creative vision of the human musicologists and composers who guided the entire project. The AI was an extraordinary tool, a powerful collaborator, but not the initiator or the arbiter of the creative vision. The coming years, the rest of this decade certainly, will be a period of intense adaptation and negotiation. It will require proactive collaboration among individual creators learning new tools and workflows, industry leaders developing new business models and ethical guidelines, and policymakers crafting sensible regulations that foster innovation while protecting human rights and values.
So, as AI continues its rapid advance, allowing for a potentially limitless, effortless output of creative content, perhaps the final question we leave you, the listener, with is this: what value will you ultimately place on the unique human story, the specific lived experience, the authentic emotion, and the conscious intention behind a work of art, a piece of music, or a written word?
And flowing from that, how will we as a society ensure that humanity, with all its flaws, passions, and unique perspectives, remains at the very heart of creation, even as we wholeheartedly embrace and inevitably shape the incredible, powerful tools of our own ingenious machines? That, perhaps, is the grand creative project of the 21st century.